Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. Nothing ticks better than Pundit Friday, which we're about to begin in the WNHH studio with the number one pundits in the media universe. Pundits like the dairy-free goddess of our grassroots radio operation, the managing editor of Inner City News and host of Love Babs, Love Talk, Babs Rawls-Ivy. Good morning, Babs.
Good morning.
We're missing Markeisha Ricks, but she'll be back soon. She's on a leave, and we can't wait till she returns. We got the queen of quippery and quintessence of compassion, La Voz Hispana publisher Norma Rodriguez-Reyes.
¿Qué pasa?
We got the man whose views on the news you can't lose. That's Marcia Cruz. Joe Ugly Show in the morning.
That was smooth.
Yeah.
And we got the conqueror of cannabis commerce, the bright light in the New Haven night, straight shooter from Bermuda, Joe Ugly of the Joe Ugly Show.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. We got to abbreviate it.
Hey guys, did you hear the big news?
Yes.
Something happened.
Something.
Did it?
Yeah, although people didn't hear about it. You know what happened? 7 o'clock last night on the New Haven Green.
Caught him.
3 people were on a bench on the New Haven Green, and they passed out.
Wow.
So some firemen came and medics, and they gave them Narcan
Uh-huh.
because they had been using probably some kind of opioid, and they were taken to the hospital for treatment. Now, you might say to me, Paul, that's not news. That happens 5-6 times a day, every day in New Haven.
Yeah.
Up to 20 people a day have overdoses in New Haven, often from opioids, and we don't hear about it.
Right. Correct.
This week, the whole world, they didn't hear about that group because the group we heard about this week did not have any Narcan. They didn't need that because they didn't have opiate addiction. 77 overdoses happened mostly on the Green in a 24-hour period, Tuesday night through Wednesday night, and the whole world heard about it. Any thoughts?
Absolutely. I think where we need to start with this whole situation, and I see some people on comments about locking people up. This is really where we have to address the mental health issue
Indeed.
in our country, not just here in New Haven, but across the board. We have to address it. We can't ignore the fact that people are also self-medicating.
Indeed.
And that is playing a major role into why people is willing to take drugs.
Why we have a drug crisis. And this show happens every day. You know, Joe Ugly said we got to pay attention to it. I was thinking about this because I was hanging out with some firefighters yesterday who were in between dealing with the Green. They're just outside the firehouse, and some guy comes stumbling by, all whacked out. It wasn't from the K2. And this does all day all night. It's like I realize we have a zombie show going on in the city. Every day we kind of notice that these people are completely whacked out all day and all night, and it's sad. And it's right there, but we didn't deal with it. Now all of a sudden, 77 people drop in 77 times in one day. Some people repeat drop.
But are they really doing something about it, or is it just now that it's out here?
Oh, they're not doing anything. We're learning what to do about it.
Well, I have two thoughts about that because I think it's two separate issues. I mean, I think there's one is an addiction issue. We have an addiction problem dealing with that, and that encompasses mental health. But I also think we have this issue of bad drugs hitting the streets. I think that's a separate issue from the addiction part. I think we need to have something on the ground that is much more proactive to thwart these kinds of activities from people getting their hands on bad drugs.
Tom Breen found out some new information about that. He just came back from a press conference with the police and politicians. And there's something called Fubinaca. I never heard of it. So K2 is a synthetic marijuana, which is somewhat misleading. It's like 100 times more powerful marijuana. I think the reason they maybe call it that is because it's mixed in with like grass cuttings and potpourri. It used to be legal. That they used to sell it legally at the convenience stores here in New Haven. And then every time the FDA would ban it, they would just change the chemicals. It's all synthetic, all chemical. It's not like natural herb. And this Fubinaca was added to this batch. And the police department had seen that before. They just hadn't seen that bad batch hurt as many people. And according to the police, we don't know if this is true yet with the final court of law, but Police Chief Campbell said that he's pretty confident that of the 2 main people distributing this bad batch to so many people, one of them was doing it for free to try to line up customers.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, of course, as a
How do you
usual
line
thing,
up customers if they overdose?
that's the thing, because they come back. Oh, Babs, that's
It's
a great
about-
point. They come back because they overdose.
Because
So
they
every time
overdose.
there's overdose, I remember this from a couple of years ago. We had when the opiate.
So
the
is
fentanyl.
overdose the
People say that
So
must be
people-
good stuff. So when these
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
taken to the hospital, that's why it's not 77 people. They were taken to the hospital because it wasn't opiates; it was K2. They drop faster, but they snap out of it faster. They were taking themselves out of the hospital, going back to the Green 2-3 times. to get more of the stuff, and more people are coming to look for it. Because once someone's
Once
telling
the
me
word
this,
got out,
drug counselor was telling me this week, once the word gets out,
Yep.
warning people not to take bad drugs, everybody wants it because
They
it's
do.
so intense. Like fentanyl's a killer.
Yeah,
Right.
because prolonged drug use, they don't get high anymore. They normally taking their drugs to fight off withdrawal symptoms. So they're chasing that high again once they hear about something that caused somebody to overdose. That's the mentality that they I feel that they were dealing with on Wednesday.
It could be,
You know?
And
That's
here's where I get into the whole mental health. Look, I know someone who used to ride the trains in New York. You read a newspaper and you hear of someone had it. They'll go find that area because they'll say, they must have been weak. That's why they overdosed.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that
Right.
kick.
Yeah, we had one of the during the last overdose phase. We had a guy on the radio here saying he always thought that way.
Yeah.
That well, I know I can handle it better.
Right.
But other people don't care. I think you just want that high. It's a death wish almost.
But the question becomes, if we don't address this as a mental health issue, you help me understand what makes
And
people
public
feel
health.
that way.
and public health.
Public health, but at some point you realize, look. I know for a fact people start doing drugs because of depression, because of highs, lows, all that stuff. So they take stuff that keep them calm. I know ADD. Some people take drugs just to calm themselves down. I know one individual who caught himself out because his dealer went to jail. What happens to these people when their dealer go to jail? They go to someone else, and back then they used to lace weed with embalming
PCP.
fluid.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and it really messed this person up.
Yeah, I remember that. That was crazy.
Yeah. So and that was a strong stem of mental health. That's why I'm addressing that.
Illy. That was the illy thing.
Exactly.
In
No, he's right. He's correct. That's what it's called.
But the story here is that the city of New Haven, what are we going to do about all that? The people go to the hospital, they get out of their high, they come back to the streets again. What are we as a city going to do about this?
That's a tough question.
Everyone is coming to New Haven. I really believe it's time for everyone to pay their fair share. The region and everyone has to pay. The New Haven cannot continue to carry the burden for the entire state.
So
This
Norma,
is why I say
Norma
it
has
should not
put the
just be
finger
a
on the
local.
question.
It should not be a local addressing local issues. I had this discussion with someone yesterday. Well, let's look at New Haven. No, if you just look at New Haven and not look at like you just said, people are transit in and out of New Haven. So more people are coming in, like especially when they hear something
And that's
like that is going
that's
on.
frustrating for the people dealing with it, the police officers, the city, because Willimantic, Waterbury, those aren't close by. People come from there to go to the App Foundation, or some people think it's unfair to single out App because K2 has nothing to do with App. It's a different drug altogether. But the scene is here.
Right.
And people aren't quite sure where. Some people blame buses. Other people say, well, most people ride buses.
What do you mean blame buses? How do they blame
buses?
buses?
They say like
I missed
have me at the green. They'd rather we're out of your sight.
Well, because
that's
bus
nonsense.
is code for a particular demographic of people.
Exactly.
That's
I
what
hate-
they're saying.
Yeah, let's not.
I do think we have to address access to these drugs. I mean, I think access is one, and I think mental health is the other component.
But what is the access that we're looking at?
I think the access I think it has to become increasingly difficult for people to get their hands on these kinds of drugs.
Do you think can that ever be done?
Stuff.
Absolutely. I think it can be done. I think we don't like the ways in which we could do it. I think legalizing marijuana is a good first step. I also think
they wouldn't have been dropping yesterday if
they had could access. I don't know.
They might
if
have been dancing a little bit, but they wouldn't have been dropping.
I think you might be right about that.
But Babs, where do most of the illegal drugs like these, where do they really kick off from?
I don't know.
Young
fentanyl was coming from China, actually.
Young people who understand the different ingredients. It comes from young people who understand the different ingredients in.
But it's not young kids bringing this stuff in.
Or people who understand.
But it's not kids that are bringing it in.
Okay.
It's got to be adults that are transporting these drugs.
Okay, good.
Just like
I know.
guns.
I said young people, and you're right. Let me put it back to people who understand what ingredients are in basic stuff that we have, and they try to mix them up to create their own.
So Marshall Cruz looked up Fubinaca. How do you even spell that thing, Marshall?
Fubinaca.
Mm-hmm.
The full name is Ab Fubinaca, so it's AB-Fubinaca.
And what is the deal with it?
It's Schedule 2 here Schedule 1 here in the U.S., Schedule 2 in China. It's illegal in China.
Okay. Oh,
it's a controlled substance.
Mm-hmm.
And is it chemical?
It is.
Where does it come from?
They say it's a binder with the cannabinoid receptors in the human body.
Okay.
Ooh.
They say it was originally
Chemists.
developed by
You got
Pfizer back in
chemists who understand
2009.
this
Wait, Pfizer. This came out of a Pfizer lab.
Back
Okay.
in 2009 as a
Chemists.
I don't know how to say
So
this.
now my
NOTC.
conspiracy theories are all going to kick in, right? 'Cause
And it should. That's not conspiracy. That's your cautious theory.
Mhm.
You know, people like to use that
there's
word
a reason
loosely.
why
you know?
I think you see these drugs hit the streets the way they do. I honestly believe that some of this stuff is experimental, just to sort of see.
Well, let's not forget Miss Evans' boys. I'll never forget that.
Well, Norma's got something she wants
You
to
know,
say. You get in
I
the mic.
think it's really sad that this is happening in the New Haven Green.
You get closer.
Okay? Because the New Haven Green perception is everything in life.
Mhm.
And as soon as the suburbanites and all the other folks from out there that don't know New Haven,
Mhm.
as soon as they hear that, that reflects on our city.
Let's hear.
But you know-
Let's hear what one suburbanite said, because Norma is bringing up the issue I really want to get to, because it's a tough issue, and it's one issue people are arguing about a lot. It's not more important than the other thing we're talking about, public health, but it's a tough one to find solutions to, and I really appreciate Norma for bringing that up. So Len Fasano lives in the suburbs. He came from here, his family, New Haven. He's in North Haven. He's the highest elected Republican in the state,
Mhm.
and he attacked Mayor Harp and the city for the overdoses. Here's what he said. It speaks to a painful and ugly reality about drug abuse we have to work together to combat, but it also speaks to a city that allowed one of its primary community centers, the Green, to deteriorate to the point where it's no longer an attraction for families or economic development, but a place of despair. The Green is just steps away from City Hall and town officials. No drug use in the Green is not limited to what happened yesterday. It's a known problem, has not been addressed. People are suffering, and they've been ignored. Hope there's a wake-up call to the mayor's administration about a problem they can no longer turn a blind eye to. New Haven should be a place of hope. And Mayor Harp's administration
What's
needs
his
to
plan?
accept it.
Does he have a plan?
Well, Mayor Harp
If he
said,
doesn't have a plan, then he should shut up.
Mayor Harp says, so one of our commenters immediately pointed out that he comes from North Haven, where the police routinely bring homeless people and drop them off in
So
Thank
is
you.
New
he?
Haven.
So is he?
Thank
Is
you.
he in the North Haven City Hall talking to their mayor about how they can stop that?
Or
how
Mayor
they can
Harp
stop
says,
their
Mayor Harp
practices?
says he was responsible as a legislator for cutting $9 million from our budget this year.
Okay, so
for
let's address the
resources to
real
deal with
issues.
stuff.
So
The
then he
real
should shut
issue-
up unless
right.
he's got a real resolution.
Now, what
Exactly.
about the tough problem now? Except for I think you're right. Now, Norma says, what should we do about the Green? So some people say, well, and we had protesters in the library about
Well,
this.
you know, the Green has its own management, right?
Yeah.
So it's not.
They contract with the city for that. So the city
Okay.
parks department does it and the city police. That's a good point. The proprietors of the Green, and some people think they could do more. They contract with the city to deal with it. And the police feel stretched. They know who all the people are, the regulars. I've watched them with them. They actually care about these people and they want to help them sometimes.
So are we suggesting that we remove people from the Green?
That's
that we
exactly
don't
what
want
some
people in the
people-
Green?
Some people are definitely saying remove certain people from the Green.
Certain
Exactly.
people.
But then how do you do that?
Len Fasano is definitely expressing that in his statement. He would love to see the New Haven
So
Green.
certain people.
Right.
You know, keep in mind.
Do we put bars and numbers on these certain people so that we can
Yeah.
identify them readily when they come
So
back? I'm
obviously,
just trying to understand.
obviously that's
Right.
not New Haven. That's not what we want. So how do we, given that we don't want to do that, and first of all, Fasano's just wrong. We have tens of
It's
thousands
totally
of people
wrong.
come on the Green.
Right.
It is still a vibrant
It's a
set of
vibrant
life.
setup.
But it
You
is
know,
sad that we find ways to just not look at what's happening by the fountain. We look at what's happening by the flagpole and by the stage.
Mhm.
We just had Arts Ideas Festival.
Yeah.
There's no place in Connecticut as interesting and as pluralistic as the New
Right.
Haven Green.
Exactly.
But there is also the zombie movie happening on screen one
Yeah.
that we're not looking at that is real.
Yeah.
And it's also real that, as Norma said, after what happened yesterday, you know, people have ideas like the murder in the garage that had nothing to do with the garage in the 1970s. It was
Right.
someone who knew somebody else.
Right.
That became a reason people didn't come into New Haven for decades. So no matter what happens on the ground in reality in New Haven now, people are going to have this idea that New Haven isn't cool to come to, which might even be okay with me. We maybe don't need them. We're fine with people who are cool with the city. But what do we do about the Green? Is it a place? So some people say, why should Green be a place where there's open air drug dealing and people being harassed and people peeing and pooping right on the street there?
Once
and
again, so
freaking out people, everybody else,
well,
so
then
nobody
you know
else
what?
comes.
Then Paul, then we have to do some. Listen, if the majority of people feel very strongly about this, then you know you have to go old school and organize. If you don't want the buses downtown, then we need to say we don't want buses
But
downtown.
obviously, buses are not the answer
And-
because you
but-
got to have
but-
buses.
but
People
no,
need to get
no.
the jobs. They need to
Listen,
shop. You're
I
not going to have
understand.
stores.
I understand that, but if you want to move the population of people away from the Green, then you have to move the buses from the Green. You've got to move you have to create barriers to the Green. That's because this is what we're talking about: creating barriers. To
I
the
agree,
Green.
and that's why I
because
think.
you only want certain kind of people to
But we
enjoy
can't
the
do
Green.
that because that's not what we want in New
Exactly.
Haven. And
That's
also,
exactly what you're
look
saying.
at Orange.
That's
Look at
exactly
Orange and
what you're
Chapel
saying.
Street because some of
And
the
I
bus
agree with
stops
you,
did
Bab.
move to Orange and Chapel. The Ninth Square now feels like a lot of their businesses are going down because there's open air kind of opiate population right there where the other bus stop is. I don't think bus stops are the answer. You need buses. We need people. We can't run away from that.
Right, exactly.
So how do we deal with the behavior? Because don't you think there is a legitimate point that when you walk on the green, you shouldn't be a victim of crime, or there shouldn't be in this open air place people doing things they're not supposed to do in public? I mean, how do you deal with that?
Well, look, I think first of all, look, the people who are being accused of doing all of this stuff on the green, half of the time they're not actually doing all the stuff that people are saying. People just don't like seeing them.
Yeah,
that's
what it is. They don't want to see them.
You get an
But you want to know something?
But
It does happen.
We shouldn't have to
It does
see them.
happen.
Why not?
We shouldn't have to see them. We need to help
No,
these
no, but-
individuals. We need to put them in treatment facilities
Yes, we
so
do.
that they can get help.
Okay, well that's
Because these folks
that's the
obviously
foundation.
need serious help.
Well, that's the foundation step, and that's where. But that is more than just a New Haven issue. That's across that's across the
You know,
country issue.
Why
Because
should it
just-
be tolerated, okay? Open ear drug dealing, okay? It's
no,
not tolerated in the
nobody
suburbs.
say-
Why do
nobody
we have
said
to tolerate it here in New Haven? Because you
the
look the
population
other
is
way,
different in the
that's
suburbs,
why it
Norman.
keeps on
I mean-
happening more and more and more.
No, the population is different in the
It does
suburbs.
happen
Plus,
in
you don't
West
have
Haven.
these, but they have open air drug. They have hand to hand drug dealing in the suburbs. Let's not act like they don't. They have. Let's go into your house and take it off.
Yeah,
it's
do it in your house, not in the open air market.
They do it. Look, I believe me when I tell you, the suburbs has some walking down the street, get dap, and there was a
We
drug
should-
deal.
So I mean, what do we
you have
want? Do we want a heavily policed
have-
green?
Yeah.
Do we want every
A
2 feet
military
to have
green.
a police officer on the ready to arrest
Right.
anybody who looks suspicious?
Look,
Is that what we? I mean, I'm just trying to understand.
We don't want that, but I don't know what the answer is.
Well, what
Babs.
do we want?
I think what we want is
But we
people
gotta get to
not
what
to
we
be
want.
openly pooping and peeing. I've seen all this. Or
Yeah, but-
throwing up or harassing people or
Understand,
using
but-
drugs or selling drugs
And that goes-
overdosing right
and
on
that
the green.
goes back to what I-
That's
that goes back to
behavior.
what-
That's not people.
That goes back to what I was saying. Then when we need to address someone who just takes they take a poop right there on the city green. That's a mental issue. That's a mental health issue. You can't ignore that.
That's
No,
what
it's
that
also
is.
sometimes the
Take
person
it
has
to a
nowhere to
treatment
go.
facility.
I've
Right.
talked to homeless
Okay.
people who said we have nowhere else to go.
Okay.
I know
So-
the place
so
where I'm going to try
then
to
I
go to the
think that's the
bathroom.
first thing we need to address. Then is giving these people some place to go.
So then let's address let's
You know.
address having homes. Exactly. Let's
Opening up
address
more of
having.
these shelters. They closed down a lot of shelters because of lack of funding.
And who cut our funding?
But
Same
yet
guy
they
who
cost
wants to
$50,000 in
complaining, right?
prison.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, but then they'll pay for it.
They close the homeless shelters,
But they pay for
put
it.
them in jail
Exactly.
where they
Yeah.
pay $50,000
Exactly.
per each person.
And that's
You're
Exactly.
listening. You're
Okay?
listening to Dateline New Haven's Friday Pundits, and Harry Droz has entered the room. Harry Droz, we're talking 103.5
Oh,
FM, Large G, NewHavenIndependent.org. Bridget Corcoran. Oh, is that a different show? Sorry, Harry. Harry Droz has entered the room, and he has not weighed in yet. And I'm dying to know what he thinks.
Well, for me, I think you start by legalizing marijuana and start and well, seriously, and also start using they're finding new ways to use CBD to treat addiction. So let's start moving into those areas where we can help people with addiction. And then as for the people who you don't want to see downtown, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're a melting pot of a city and then push the people you don't want to see out of it. You can't.
You can't say you're a melting pot, then push the ingredients out.
I do think in New Haven that even though we've heard rumors at times when DeStefano was the mayor, when there'd be some big event, they would push the homeless people out of the green. In general, I think we have a consensus that we don't want to be that kind of city. We love that the green is for everybody. So I think it's about norms. Like
That
I'm thinking,
sounds so nice, though, Paul. We love the idea that the green is for everyone,
Right.
but when it comes down to the actual, let me just say this real quick. When you're dealing with cities, you have to deal with cities in the city. But when you want to have that opinion on a city, you must look at it the same way as if you're buying a shirt. If you go to the store and the shirt has a little speck on it, that's the deciding factor if you're going to buy it or not.
I'm going to buy it
Now-
because it's going to be $2 off.
But if you, exactly, but once again, it's a deciding
See,
factor.
I'm not.
You see, that's the deciding factor if you're gonna buy it or not. Are you gonna get $2 off? If not, you're looking for certain things. But then all of a sudden you look around and it's the last shirt on the shelf that matches what you want to wear, then matches your outfit, and it's the last minute. So what do? And then you realize you just dust it off, and you're like, oh wow, this wasn't that bad at all in the first place. It's the perception of what it is. It's my point. People sit back in the suburbs and they have these weird perception of all city life. all, not just New Haven. They see it across the board. So they come in with their own perception of that, and then hear something like this, it adds on to their belief. But they don't know what this city is really all about.
And that's
They
okay
don't
with
know the
me.
real
That's always been
depth of
true.
it.
They want the lily white suburbs, go live in them.
Exactly.
But I want to get back to Babs's point. So obviously, Babs, we don't want a place where certain people aren't allowed. We don't want a police state.
Yes, we do.
But what do we?
We do want
saying
spaces.
I'm saying we.
Oh, us.
Oh,
in
But
here.
what do we do about certain behavior on the green that we don't want to have
I'm
happen?
sorry. Why do we feel like we have to do anything other than make sure that people are safe?
Because
Really?
they're not safe. 77 of them fell the other day.
Okay, so if 77 fell, then we need to address that.
That
but that has
issue.
nothing
That's an
to do.
individual issue.
That has anything with. That's not the green per se.
Exactly.
That's something
Again,
else.
that's
so
the
we
dot
have
on
to.
the shirt.
But do you think that public space should be controlled by people whose behavior keeps everybody else away?
But I'm not kept away.
Really?
Who's
Where's
kept away? I'll go on the
That's
green
true.
right now
I
and
go
enjoy
right
it.
That's
on the
true.
green.
That's a good point. I'm never
I
kept
have
away from
people
the
in
green.
my building who
And they
comes
had- and during the
crosses on the
overdoses-
green, and they sit right
No,
there.
you were totally
They're-
right. During the overdoses, they had the trucks out
Yeah,
in the
still
stands
vibrant.
for the city seed farmers market, and they were doing fine. I asked people
Right.
over there; they didn't even know what was going
Because
on.
when you live in a city, if you live in a city, you understand that this is city life. And that if you want a suburban life, take your ass to the suburbs.
Agreed.
Otherwise, you live in the city and you come with all the warts and the noises and the sirens and the
Easy now.
different kinds
Easy
of
now.
people.
Sirens.
I know.
Hold on now.
I know. You know. I know. No.
No, yeah, and
You
you
know,
know,
these
you know
people-
what would keep people away?
What's that?
Moving the bus stops.
Right.
Right, and if that's what people want, then they shouldn't be here downtown.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
you're gonna move the bus stops, and you're gonna create an environment.
You're gonna create Georgetown.
Right.
Exactly. You
Swear
can't
to
do
God.
that.
No, we got to stop. We have to
Georgetown's
stop.
got rats, though. The only time Georgetown, I was walking there by the water there. I got scared out of my mind. I didn't see any people, but there was a nice yuppie bookstore where I got like a latte or something at 11 at night.
You know, people think that they want that idyllic, bucolic existence, and they don't. They
really-
you
Well,
know,
they already tried to outprice you, right?
yeah.
Out of downtown.
Yes.
And then they keep raising the parking rate so that you really don't want to go
Yeah.
downtown.
Yeah.
So come on.
So eventually we're going to be what? Hamden?
That
I mean,
was
I-
cheap. That was cheap. They're raising the parking rates. Harry Drost, don't you want to pay for cops? Don't you want to pay for drug help for people?
I mean, we got
The
to
government shouldn't
find
be
a way to
raising
pay
their
for it.
money.
I appreciate that.
That is a cheap demagogic point there.
Well, you know,
they parking rates. Who are the they? You think it's the rich person with the Rolls Royce that wants to charge you to park your darn car?
But you know what? Talking about that, when you talk about 77 people that overdosed, that had to be taken by ambulance, that all these
Actually, it
firemen
wasn't
and all,
77. It was
the
less than
police
77.
and everybody that
But
had
it
to
was
deal with it. Imagine the amount of hours and
I understand.
manpower.
Yeah, the strain.
Let me tell you something.
Understand.
Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let me give you. Let me
understand
give
that.
you a little
And-
silver lining. The fact that it happened on the green where there were so many people at one time probably
Probably
is
it's
the
the
blessing.
best thing.
It is the
The
best.
Probably
thing.
was
We
the
don't want to be
blessing.
pulling out 77 out of homes
Out
2
of
months.
homes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
blocks away
Exactly.
and not connected and all these other.
Yeah.
Then our resources would
Would
have
have
been
been stretched.
extended
Yep.
and strapped.
Yep.
The fact that they were in one place, and I know people don't like this kind of talk, but
But
here's-
it's true.
But it's
It's
the
real.
truth.
Can't be realer.
The
It is
better that it
real.
happened there, where we
Right.
could mobilize forces in that moment
Right.
and address it,
Right.
rather than I got to run over to the hill,
Henry
I got to run over to
Henry
Dixon,
Fernandez-
I got to run over here.
Henry Fernandez wrote a comment in saying that it's important that we care for everybody's serious problem, but he said we can recognize the humanity of those addicted to drugs while still taking actions immediately to stop any park or neighborhood from being the center of drug dealing and drug use in Connecticut. Do you think he's off base on that?
No, he's not
No,
off
he's
base.
not.
But that's
But I thought
really
you were saying, Babs, that it's okay.
no.
No,
I'm
no,
not,
no, no, no. That's not what
Paul.
he said.
I'm
That
not
was
saying
not what he
I-
said.
That's not
what she said at all.
That's not what I said.
No.
What I said.
you gotta
Listen,
start cutting
we-
services
we-
for these
First of all,
people.
we have to start from a place of humanity, and we have to stop those them kinds of
Yes!
descriptions.
Yes.
Those them, those people, those they,
Yeah.
them. We have to stop that.
We really
These
do.
people. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
People can enjoy the green.
Like you said, Babs, people are out there. You go out there. I
I'm out
go
there. I
out
don't have any
there.
problem.
I cross the green.
I don't have an
I
addiction
don't have
problem.
exactly.
I didn't fall
see
out
people.
You know, I
yesterday.
agree with you.
I
on
see
the-
You're
people
African
out-
American.
What's that?
That's the difference.
What's the difference?
You're African
No,
American.
it's not the
What does
difference.
that
I'm
mean?
white.
No,
I
no,
enjoy
no,
the
no, no.
green.
But
No,
you know
I'm
what?
I'm
The
white.
truth
I
is,
enjoy
a
the
lot
green.
of these folks from
I
the
don't- what do
suburb
you
that have
mean?
never been exposed to African American, to Latinos, to these kind of
Listen,
elements. Okay,
Norma,
all they do is get scared.
Norma.
That's their problem. That is their problem.
Never even
No,
been
that-
with an African American.
You know what? And that's their problem. That is
Norma,
their problem.
Why am I concerned about?
what-
Listen, these people have no problems come and get jobs in this city.
Thank you.
They don't. They're not afraid to get their
Just-
paychecks.
Talk about
They
it.
don't have a problem going to the hospital.
They don't have
Go
a
to-
problem eating at all the fancy little restaurants.
Thank you.
They don't have a problem using all our resources.
Thank you.
So what suburban people are? I don't give a doggone about suburban people's
Amen.
perception of New Haven.
Right.
Because New Haven is still an exciting city, and you still have to come into this city if you want to do exciting
Talk
things.
to
No,
Amen.
if you want to go to
Amen.
the hospital, if you want to go to the court system, if you want to go to use the major libraries, all of this stuff that they come out here, they come in here and they rape the city, and then they run out here talking this nonsense. They're just they're what I call urban rapists
Because
Get
they
outta
don't
here.
mind picking up their
They don't mind-
paychecks.
Exactly.
Or the drugs.
Come in here.
Or
and
their drugs.
Because the
Exactly.
people overdosed, and I was there.
Thank you.
There were
Right.
plenty of them were white.
Yes,
You know?
plenty of them.
You
and
know
they
what?
ain't from New
They
Haven.
ain't from New Haven. And this is the tag that we get here in the city. And to say it because I'm African American, not even in the slightest, because guess what? There are people from my building who are white who love going on the green and spread their blankets out and be there all the time.
The people that live in your building are already city folks. They're not
No.
suburbanites.
No.
Okay?
Easy.
And see,
No.
remember,
I'm trying to
that's an
understand
assumption.
why are you so concerned about what suburbanite people say? They already work here. They
You-
don't.
you
they
know what?
already spend their money here.
And here's why you don't care about them. Because you know why? They ran out to the suburbs to hide out. Stay there. Stay in the suburbs. These are people, they're separatists. I have no problems with saying it. They're a bunch of separatists.
I'm really
that wanna
with
be out
I'm really
there.
with Joe
Get
Ugly
out.
on an economic development standpoint. I think a mistake the city has made in the 80s and 90s and early teens was they felt they wanted to convince people in the suburbs who didn't want to be with people who are different not to come here. But then when we went with our strengths, embraced our diversity, and what
Thank
made
you.
the city fun and
It
different,
came back.
lots of
Came to
people
life.
did want to
Yep.
come. And for those who don't, that's okay. And I have mean things to say about them, but maybe it's not mean. Maybe
That's
you just
not
want to
mean.
be out
It's
with
just
like
reality.
owls and wolves. You know, it's like maybe
That's
you want to be
it.
with the raccoons. You know, that's cool. And you should be out there with the
Listen,
raccoons
I'm
and
gonna
beds.
tell
Listen,
you how
but let me tell you
unhealthy it is
something.
out there.
I don't want to hear suburban people wax poetic against my city because
Thank
I
you.
love being in the city.
So you're not
If
voting
this-
for Len Fasano?
No, Lynn.
Well,
stay,
you're not registered in North
stay
Haven.
your New Haven transport itself in North Haven and go. And I invite you to go to North Haven Mayor's office and say, how can we help New Haven keep our people serviced in North
Exactly.
Haven?
There
Do-
you go.
That's how you help this.
And while
mayor.
you at it, stop taking our cops out there.
yeah, thank
know?
you.
Pilfering.
Oh, and
Yeah, we
Marquisha
train
says,
them
Harry,
to
you
go.
on fire.
And further, when you're at it, let's remind you that you're listening to Pundit Friday on
Talk to
Dayline
him, Paul.
WNHH 103.5 FM, live streamed at
I
newhavenpundit.org.
love when he does the transition.
There was other news this week. Oh, it was a
Oh, really?
long
Was there?
time ago. It was all the way back on Tuesday night before the body stopped dropping.
Can we
Or
go
when they
back to
started
the?
dropping.
That day,
Can we go back to the
election day.
overdose thing?
Oh yeah, what do you guys say, Joe?
No, I just want to go back to the overdose.
Go back. You got the mic, man.
No, we can talk
Okay,
anything
what's
about it.
the other thing?
No, don't talk about that.
What was it? What's the
Don't
other
talk
thing?
There was a
about that.
primary election, the biggest one in over a decade for most statewide
I know.
offices that are open. Democrats and Republicans chose their candidates.
That's
And
why I told
one
you we
thing
should have
that
went
was
back to the
really
open.
interesting to me. We're not going to bring up that Joe Ugly predicted that Joe Gannon was going to win,
I sure did.
and that he got under 20%.
I know he got whipped.
He barely
oh my
won
God.
Bridgeport. But you know what got
Oh,
me
man.
was the Ava Bermuda Zimmerman race.
Oh, she got hers too.
Now she didn't get hers. I think she did fine.
What's fine?
Oh yeah.
I was
no.
expecting her
She
to
got like
show up.
35% of the statewide votes. She's someone who was running against a woman who has had a statewide elected office for 12 years, been in the politics 25 years, run
And
for the
she's
office.
white.
And she also, not just
Thank
that, yeah, she's white, she won
you.
the suburbs, but also she worked. Both of them worked hard. Susan
I
Bice
just
won.
gonna say, Ava worked hard.
Ava worked very
She worked
hard.
extremely
And she
hard.
was up against someone with more money, party support, who had decades of relationships in the towns that dominate the state. Ava ran in the cities.
Plus ran with the partner.
So I think she did a very good job. But here's the thing that got me.
Nobody.
Where was the Latino vote? I want to give
That's
you
a
guys
good
some
question.
numbers. Ava
That's a good
Bermuda
question.
Zimmerman.
There you go, Norma.
Before Norma, can I throw some facts at you first?
Yes.
Okay, so Ava was running, and we all got excited about it, especially like dippy white liberals like me. We were saying, wow, Eva's the bomb because
Yeah.
she's so smart, she's
Right.
so right, she's so like real, she has great positions on issues, she had this amazing life story in the favelas in Brazil and work with healthcare and Obamacare. Why wouldn't you want someone 31 years old with that talent to be in state government? Like, I would have voted for her for governor, okay? So, but here's what happened on Election Day in New Haven. She would have been the first Latina or Latino ever on a statewide ticket. So you'd think she would get the Latino vote. In New Haven, She won New Haven, not by a lot. And Susan Biles didn't even come here to campaign. She didn't even have signs in most places. And Ava won only 55%. The only reason she won, and this is not going to sound nice, it's because of white liberals. So you go to Ward 14 in Fairhaven, Ava lost that ward. She barely got votes in the Latino wards where she did win. She only got 112 votes in Ward 16. Let me give you a walk over to Ward 25, Westville. She got 520 votes there. She beat Susan Bisowitz, who's probably met more people in that ward than Ava has. Ava trounced her in that ward. Ward 10 in East Rock, she trounced her, 369 to 227. That's the only reason she had enough votes to win New Haven at all, let alone get the kind of margin to win. My question was, and I know I met Latinos. Latinos were so excited about her because she was such a great candidate. And it's great that she had cross appeal. She wasn't just a Latino candidate at all. She was a labor movement candidate. She was a progressive candidate. What happened, Norma?
I think basically August 14th. Usually primaries are in September. The other thing is, none of the candidates that won spent a penny on the Latino media. All of their monies was spent on the mainstream media.
Did Ava?
Ava did.
She did.
But hardly anything.
But she
Because
didn't
she
get
ended
the
up
Latino
getting her
votes,
money. She ended up getting her money when? Like 5 days before the elections. You know, what can you do 5 days before the elections?
Right.
So she
She had
didn't
an
have any
awesome ad. I
literature.
loved her
She
ad.
didn't have any literature out there. She had nothing to run a statewide campaign. And many of us thought, hey, the unions were supporting her. We thought that the unions would definitely help out. But I think basically the problem is that no investment is done in the Latino community in terms of promoting that that they vote and get out the vote.
But you're
None of it.
blaming outsiders for not revving up the Latino vote. Why doesn't now? Is it because Latino? There's no one Latino community. You have a lot of immigrants from other countries. It's not one culture, one people. Why wouldn't the Latino community itself have generated excitement for this campaign?
I think a lot of it had to do with Susan Bisowitz. A lot of people did not really want to take on Susan Bisowitz.
But
So-
Ava did.
I'm sorry? No, they didn't really.
Ava.
They
He
did
said
it in a
Ava
very
did. But here's what I think, Paul, and this is the real. We have a control mechanism going on right now in the Latino community with ICE. And people people who I spoke to, well, actually two people. So if we want to go in depth,
The
that
same
said
two who were
that-
going to elect Joe Ganim.
Probably. No, but there were two individuals that I spoke to from the Latino community who said that they really and truly don't want to get involved. They were more expressive, of course, because they were concerned about, you got ICE out here, you got this one coming out here at you and questioning where you are, where you live. So who knows
So do you
if
think
that can pay a psychological effect
So, Joe,
on
do you
people
think
not
Latino
coming
voters,
out?
Latino registered voters
listen,
stayed home
Who
because of
knows if
ICE?
that
I
was
think
not a play a part?
I think the Latino voters did just what white women did for Hillary Clinton. They went with what they thought was in their best interest.
But they didn't vote for her.
And that
They didn't vote for
that's
Susan.
what I mean.
Some of
They
them
just
did.
didn't show up.
They-
Some of them did vote
But-
for Susan. Susan did very
She
well
did
in
well.
Latino
in the
wars.
Latino community.
Her
They-
problem
so-
was with
Latino
white
elected
liberals.
officials.
These Latinos did exactly what white women
So
did
wait a minute, Latino
for Hillary
okay,
Clinton.
So,
They voted what they
Miguel,
thought.
I got to step away from your
They
end.
thought
I
that
gotta
what
put
was
him
in
on
their
blast
best
right now.
interest. And Susan Bisowitz was in their best interest over one of their own.
Do you know why?
But that's because
And
the
you know
one of
why?
our own
Listen,
was
I
not
don't
known
care
in
about
our
why
community.
it happened.
Okay,
You know
first
why?
of all,
I'm going to tell you why.
Eva
Because they were
is
thinking
new
that they need
into
to
the political
let the
process
suburbs
and
be
into the
represented.
statewide Latino community. Eva was a
Here I
total
am
unknown.
defending this.
So it's
I'm
not
sorry.
fair to. I mean, it would have been a different story if you.
I'm
had
sorry.
Like a
She was a Latina that was hella qualified.
Yes, she was.
So I'm sorry.
Yes, she is.
They didn't
I
show
didn't know
up for
they
her.
show up in.
They
I didn't know they
show
show
up
up
know
for
her.
Susan,
they
did
didn't
they?
know her because
I'm
she
sorry,
doesn't
what?
have statewide name recognition.
But she was a Latina
Okay.
and a qualified Latina.
Yes.
So are you saying that Latina does not matter?
Of course it matters.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
it
see, when
doesn't.
you have
It
the-
doesn't matter for me over a party, right? So now, when the party is telling everybody vote Susan, there's a lot of people. It doesn't matter, in the Latino community.
Mhm.
They're loyal to party.
Well, that's not. But that's not voting your interest.
Well, then that's not voting your interest,
that's
and
not
you will
voting your
lose.
interest.
That's
You
the
will
fact.
lose
You know
at
what?
every
They're
time.
not running.
And that's
they
the
weren't voting
brainwash.
for Eva because she was Hispanic.
That's
But
the
then-
brain.
they were
You
voting-
know
but
why?
that's the brainwash.
Just telling you
listen,
what the party was
white
telling them to
men
do.
never have this conversation because white men will vote for other white men.
That's
right?
right.
White
That's right.
women will vote for white men.
Mhm.
So that's the brainwash.
That's the
as long
brainwash.
as we are the only ones having this fight about who we vote for in our best interest,
Right.
then the white man's ice is gonna continue to be the coldest ice.
You have to vote your interest. You just can't.
By the way, I
vote
think black
because of a
vote and
party.
white liberal vote went for Eva in the cities. That was
Black
just
vote?
weird to me. I was just wondering about it,
Because
I'm wondering.
I'm
what
willing
if
to support Eva to the mat. I was there. I'm willing to.
voted for
There's
her.
no
Yeah, me
way
too.
I was going to cross over and vote
but then,
the look.
we show up.
So that
I voted for Ava too, but I know
you didn't
from-
carry someone to the poll.
Well, from stuff that from people you talk to, and here, the calls were going out by the party to vote Susan.
But
Biceland.
again, I understand what you're saying,
and
Harry.
peop- and people don't. It's just. Let me tell you, this was the first time I voted just because she was Hispanic. I never
there
do
you
that
go.
myself.
and you see what?
But I do
You're
like.
voting-
I did like
you know
her.
what?
Met
This
her.
is what
and
But in
kills
that-
me.
but
We
in
are
that
the
Fair,
only
Harry met
ones-
both of
And
them.
why did
We
you
are the
do it
only
because
ones
she
that
was
have this
Hispanic?
conversation about whether we should vote for somebody who is like she ain't Flavor Flav. She was qualified.
Exactly.
She qualified.
What do you got against Flavor Flav? Marshall Cruz,
Everything.
any thoughts on that?
Flavor Flav can't represent me on
Do you
nothing.
think this was a fair move on Flavor Flav in this analysis?
I do.
Okay. So can
Listen, the truth is that
Even Flavor is like,
when
yeah,
you don't have
yeah,
the
yeah, you're right.
numbers, the situation has to be created.
Mm.
When you do not have the numbers, the situation has to be created exactly
What's
the
the
way
situation?
the situation was created for the African American
What do you
to
mean?
earn the treasurer's seat.
Yeah.
The numbers were not there. But you know what? The Democratic
What do you mean
Party
the
said you
situation had to
cannot
be
have
created?
a top ticket without having an African American representing the party because it's not fair to them. But still, the top ticket has not seen that is important for the Latino community
Okay, so
yet.
Norma, can
I
I
was
follow on
told next time we're gonna have a
Say,
Latino.
Norma, you've
not this
identified a
time.
real problem,
So
which is there been a
therefore-
barrier. What do you do about
No,
it?
I'm not going to go into that because I'm going to tell you
If
why
the
I'm going to
numbers
shoot
are
that
not
down.
there, Paul, what can you do about
Let
it?
me tell you why I
Okay.
think we should
And
shoot
they don't
that
want
down.
to do it yet.
Here's,
No, but I'm
here's
talking
why
about
I think we
why
should
don't
shoot that
Latinos
down. because-
organize to make sure that changes?
That's what it is. As long as the Latinos are going to go along to play party game, this is what is always going to be the result. You're never going to have a real seat at the table. But until the Latinos say, look, when Jerry Lamb was the first black state
Right,
treasurer.
they won that at the table,
It
right?
ju-
They said they didn't. It's not like the white party brokers and John Bailey said, "Gee, I'm listening to Tiny Tim and being kumbaya, and I'm going to make a place for an African American and a woman, a Latino."
Yes, back in
They
the day,
beat their
that's how
butt.
it was done.
But
Paul.
first they beat
No,
their
no,
butt.
no, no,
No.
no. Oh, no, Norma.
The situation was
Because
created.
every case that we have made have been hard won and hard fought. Ain't nobody gave us nothing.
You know,
John Daniels, they didn't say it's your
nothing.
turn. They didn't
No,
tell.
they-
They didn't say
they-
we want a black man. They went out
Oh,
and won.
They
no,
won and got
no.
it.
I'm not going
They've
to sit
accomplished
here
Right.
and let you say
And
that
same
people
with-
gave us
same
something.
with Jerry Lamb. Hold
You
on.
know why it
Even
was
at-
created?
e-
But wait a minute. You know why the position was created?
Why is that?
Because the African Americans threatened to go with the Republican Party, and they would do it because the numbers were already
So then why
there
don't the
to create
Latinos do
the
it?
balance to
Then
do
why
it.
don't the Latinos do
Because-
exactly that? Because you want to go with the party that tells you what to do. That's sheep mentality.
Yeah.
You got to break that. You got
Okay,
to break
instead
that
of calling
mold.
them a sheep, I'm just trying to get
But-
at
No,
why
I'm
it's
not-
Look
not
at Minnie.
happening.
Look
the
at Minnie
mentality.
Gonzalez.
I'm not
You know
calling
what?
them
Let's
Yeah.
sheep,
talk about
Paul.
a
I'm saying the
perfect
mentality.
example.
If it was me, I would have said it's a sheep mentality. No matter if it was blacks. I'm not. It's a mentality. You can't just walk around and
You're-
have someone just
you're
telling you
Look
what
at
to
how
do.
they
No,
came
but Joe-
after Minnie
Joe is
Gonzalez
absolutely
this
right.
time around.
In the Democrat Party, and this is a bad, people are probably going to take it wrong, but they practice tribalism, right? Everybody goes their separate ways,
think
and
everybody practices
but the Latinos don't. They go where they're told to go,
And, you
and
have to
unless they
stop.
start doing it for
Right,
themselves,
exactly. You have to go. Look, when Jerry Lamb became state treasurer for the state of Connecticut, that's because the Black Caucus, the Black and Latino Caucus back then, said that here's what we're going to do. They decided that when Ella Grasso was governor,
Yeah.
we want you to push forth Gerald Lamb. Gerald Lamb went up there, and he was the state treasurer at the time because she knew that she had a strong black support out of New Haven. She had strong support, black support out of Bridgeport. Those were her turnouts. So it was
So is the bottom
so it
line
was
here that white
imperative.
power brokers and black power brokers just believe Latinos aren't going to make it hurt at the polls, so they can do what they want?
As long as
I
they
wanna-
keep
is that
saying
normally,
that.
Yeah. Although Henry should mention out that he's right about the Democrats' approach, whereas the Republicans' approach is just to throw everybody off the roll and remind Jim Crow. That's
Right.
a different
Exactly.
voter suppression. Norm, I didn't want to beat up on you. I was
4
really like,
years from now, it'll finally be our turn.
No, it won't. Not if
Nah,
you say.
sooner.
That's
not
what they
if,
said.
Not
Sooner.
if. No, not if Latinos keep staying and waiting for it to happen. It will never happen.
unless you make. I guess that's my
I'm over
concern,
here
Norma.
fighting more for Latinos.
My
like,
concern,
no.
my concern, Norma, was how's it going to happen in 4 years if people look at what just happened this primary?
Right.
That unless they say, well, we need someone like Ava because the white liberals in East Rock and Westville and the black voters in Ward 20 in New Hallville will come out.
Eva was taking on the Democratic Party.
Yes,
Okay.
but
She
why
was
did
going-
she?
She
but
had a
why
black.
did she have
Listen,
to?
she had a
Yeah,
black
yeah,
state
everybody
legislator.
do that.
She had a black state legislator put her out there,
Yeah.
who held her hand,
Right.
walked her everywhere. Two of them.
And the black support, she got the black
Which is
support.
great.
Listen, black
That's all
people
pro
voted for her.
Eva.
We once
I voted
again,
for
black people show up for people who don't even show up for themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Once
great
again.
that, by the way, Ava gets all the props. Ava had a multiracial coalition.
Yes, she
Ava was a
did.
great
Yeah.
candidate. Ava worked hard. I'm
We
not
like
dissing
her. She had
Ava.
the unions,
We
too.
love this girl.
How can you
I
blame
don't
the
even know
unions?
her.
Union people
No.
gave her the 40% at the convention, didn't they? Didn't they deliver her on the
Listen,
ballot?
The Latinos did not come out for Ava. Period.
Yeah, they didn't. I thought that they came out. They didn't come out for her or Susan Bisowitz, but now I'm getting a different story. I didn't dig deep in the weeds. Now you got to look. Latino community,
Listen,
I'm
we've
with you
listen, Norma,
100%.
We
but
have
you
seen
have
this
to come
story.
out.
We've
You-
seen it with black
yes,
people.
Yes.
Listen, so this
When
ain't
we-
new.
no.
It's probably new to you, but it ain't new to us. We've seen black people not show up for black people,
Right.
so I understand that.
Right.
So I'm not trying to make it seem like the black people always go the way we ought to be going.
No,
we
So
don't.
what does
So
that
we
mean
don't.
for the flag?
But wait a minute. We're talking about in terms of voting, okay? First of all, the majority of the people in Connecticut that vote are Puerto Ricans, right? In Puerto Rico, you only vote once every 4 years. Over here in Connecticut, you have an election every single year.
But hold on,
okay?
Norma.
Meanwhile, the majority of the Puerto Ricans also speak English.
Norman.
And you know what? Nothing was done in terms of really promoting, hey, August 14th, it's time for you to get out and vote.
Okay.
But who was it
What
up
he
to
had to do-
promote it?
No.
Whose job was it to promote it for the Latino vote?
Yeah, whose job is it?
I think it's Latino
Every single
community.
candidate.
Okay,
Every single
okay.
candidate that runs,
Norma,
it's
could
their
I just
job.
give another? Let me
And
give
see,
a
we
quick
didn't
example.
have any. If you see we have 12 state representatives,
Mhm.
and the majority of them did not have a race.
Okay.
So you know what? Since
So why weren't they out there
No,
stopping
no.
for
So,
her?
so let me just give an example, Norma.
Eva,
Here's
I
how
think
it
she
works.
did very well.
We think she
Given
did,
the
but
fact
here's
that
what
this
I
is the first time that she runs.
here's
for-
what I would suggest.
Right,
that
it's
you
not
don't-
about Eva,
statewide
but-
office,
Yeah,
it's not about
especially
Eva.
with
Okay,
a
here's what I
formidable
suggest that we do.
candidate.
Here's what I would suggest that should not be expressed right now. Is to even. And I'm just suggesting. You don't have to take it. But to the Latino community, I say to you right now, don't sit down and make an excuse what happened. I would say start figuring out how to change it. And I'll give you a good example. What happened in Missouri last April was when they went out and they let the mayor of Ferguson, Missouri, get back in office. This is a guy after he allowed the prosecutor to not bring charges. This guy was in full support of the prosecutor not bringing charges to the cop who shot Michael Brown down in the street like an animal. That guy, you have blacks in Ferguson, Missouri, did not show up to vote. They got underground. The Eric Holder gang, look, I hate to use the word gang, but the group, they got underground and they reorganized. And they didn't sit there and say, oh, you didn't show up. That's I see. They started addressing, why didn't you show up? And they found out that there were a lot of people who did not show up because they had convictions and they lost their rights to vote. And the focus became, how do you get your grandmother, your aunt, your uncle, whoever else? If you want to stop this, then you have to get them on the ground. You know what happened 2 Tuesdays ago? Yeah. They voted out.
Whoa!
They voted out the prosecutor, the what they call, what is it? The prosecutor of that area, of that district, who would not bring and put a black person in office. They voted him out. And they not just put a black person in. They also reminded him, we put you in because we want to see you. We're not looking for preferential treatment. We want to see across the board. You bring these cops to justice. And that's how it's done.
Oh, amen. So you know what? We figured out what needs to happen on the green. Figured out we figured out what needs to have elections today on Dateline New Haven with the best pundits in the world. We love you, Markeisha Ricks. Looking forward when you come back. We had Marshall Cruz, great addition to the team. Harry Jaros, Joe Ugly,
King
Norma
Researcher
Rodriguez
right
Reyes, Babs Ozabi. I think there's one person who has the last word on what it's going to take the next time Ava runs, the next time we got to deal with the green, the next time we're going to, you know what's coming. And here, folks, is the final word and the final answer.
What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you come home. Just a little bit, hey, baby, just a little bit. Just a little bit, mister, just a little bit. I ain't gonna do you wrong while you gone. I ain't gonna do you wrong, 'cause I don't wanna. All I'm asking is for a little respect. Just a little bit, baby, just a little bit. Just a little bit, just a little bit. I'm out to give you all my money, and all I'm asking in return, honey, is to give me my promise when you get home. Just a little bit, just a little bit, just a little Ooh, your kisses, sweeter than honey. And guess what? So is my money. All I want you to do for me is give it to me when you get home. Yeah, baby, whip it to me. Just a little bit now, just a little bit. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, T-K-T-C-T. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, little respect. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me. Just a little bit, little respect. Just a little bit. I'll get tired. Just a little bit. Keep on trying. Just a little bit. You're running out of food. A little bit. And I ain't lying. Just a little bit. Please stop me. When you come home. Or you'll say, just a little bit. You're running out of food. A little bit.
If I stay here in this town, you know I'm gonna die.